Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to very quickly acknowledge a couple of people. May I please have our partners for this event up here? Our first partner was Real Forge with Fred and the team, but I'd like the rest of us to come up on stage. Marketing Africa Limited, please, make your way up. CIM Kenya, Legacy EXP, Kwetu FM. Oh, when I call your name, please come up on stage. I can see CIM there. That's Legacy. MultiChoice, AAR Healthcare, Postal Corporation, Kenya Airways. Please make your way to the stage. These are our partners for this event, but we'd also like to acknowledge everybody who bought a table, who brought a friend, who came out. AQ Worldwide Kenya Limited. Just clap for them. AQ Worldwide. Spear Ventures Limited, GM East Africa. Joram Sunguti, just keep the claps going and rolling. It makes you feel nice. Fred Magomere, Alchemy Products Limited, Heritage Insurance Company, CPF Financial Services, Mastec Limited, Climate and Energy Advisory, Landex Group, Jamii Telecommunications Limited, Neo Marketing Limited, Kenya Wildlife Services, Federation of Kenya Employees, Infratrack Research Limited, Chase Bank Limited, Catapult Brand Consulting, AR, SunPower Kenya. So I want our partners to just say jumbo and sit down. So we, Real Forge, Marketing Africa, CIM Kenya, Legacy XP, Kwetu FM, MultiChoice, AR, Postal Corporation, and Kenya Airways. You'll just say jumbo, where you're from, and we'll allow you to sit down. Thank you very much. And KQ, eh? Thank you. Dixon, let's start with you.
You've really ambushed me. Good evening, marketers. My name is Dixon Nyaga, Marketing Manager, Postal Corporation of Kenya. Mine is just to ask all of you, you know Posta. We have innovated. We have a new product called M-Post, where we are converting your mobile phones into your postal address. Wherever you are, you get your message that your mail is there, and you're able to deliver it to you. That's a message, thought for the night. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. When you're here, you're looking up to me, but that's okay. All right. Let's do CIM.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Joe Owako. I represent CIM, and I also represent Strathmore. I'd like to urge all marketers. I didn't hear anyone say they'll invest in their personal development, yeah? But I'll urge you to invest in a quality qualification, a world-leading qualification like CIM, yeah? Someone can take that money, but they cannot take your knowledge away. And you can use that knowledge to make more money. So invest, invest.
Thank you very much. By the way, yeah, I had to let him speak. He looks like a bouncer. So, and I don't want my nice face getting messed up. You know, us guys who wear specs, we don't like fighting. Yeah, because if someone just steals our specs, the match is over. We cannot see nothing. All right, Steve.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Oweru from Legacy XP. I believe you are consuming what we do. We deal in sound, events, and screens. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Ted. Good evening, everyone. My name is Charles Karaoke. I'm the General Manager for AR Healthcare. Just say one thing about Karibu, that AR Healthcare, we build a brand for healthcare, separated insurance and healthcare. Karibu means that regardless of their medical cover, you can go to an AR outpatient center.
All right, let somebody else speak from KQ. Let's get to hear what you have to say.
My name is Pauline Kubasu. I am from Kenya Airways. I work at the marketing department supporting Eastern Africa. So I would like to thank each of you for supporting us during the stormy moments. And we're really grateful because you've kept us flying high. Now, your national airline has been nominated for the World Travel Awards, which will be held in August. So I'd like each of you to vote for us. So you visit the www.worldtravelawards.com/vote. These are the categories that we've been nominated for. Africa Leading Airline, which we have been since, which we were awarded last year in 2016. Africa Leading Business Class, which we have held that position for the last 4 consecutive years. We have also been nominated for the In-Flight Msafiri magazine. Thank you. Africa Leading Brand, Best Brand, and Africa Leading Airport, the JKI Terminal 1A. Yeah, so we are seeking your votes. Thank you.
All right, wonderful. Now, I'm going to let the guys, Kwetu, and then I'm going to let GM just say hi, and you'll say hi. Can we let the lady first? Thank you. Lady.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rita Wahiti, and I'm from GM East Africa. I'm the Senior Market Analyst. So GM East Africa has been the market leader for the past 5 years with a market share of 35.1%. And we'd like to welcome you to invest in high-quality, world-class commercial vehicles, both passenger and commercial. And we currently have 2 programs. We're running 2 schemes with Coop Bank and NIC Bank to help cushion our customers against the tough economic times. So karibuni sana GM. Thank you.
My name is Dennis Karugu. I'm representing MultiChoice Kenya, DSTV Business. I'm a regional sales manager in Nairobi. And today we are currently running an offer. I'm assuming most of you have seen an offer on the TV or newspaper, Bogoff. My team and I will be outside. You can come and have a view of it. We are giving you a 1 month free once you purchase a fully installed DSTV full kit. So you are most welcome.
By the way, can you just clap for this guy? He's so polite. I feel like buying a second recorder from MultiChoice. My brother, just have this card. You've moved me. I just feel nice. You know, you can sell ice to an Eskimo, man. All right. Kwetu Radio. Just say hi and bye. Thank you.
Good evening. How are you? My name is Sharon. I'm from Kwetu Radio. I'm in marketing. A little bit about Kwetu Radio. We are #1 Swahili station now. And purely Kwetu Radio. Kwetu. So it's purely Rumba station and Zilizopendwa. And in that note, tomorrow we are having a Rumba night. So I want to invite all of you to come and dance with us. So we just turned 1 year at Deep West. And I'll buy all of you tickets if you come. You're not clapping for me? So we are in 4 major towns right now. We are still growing. We're in Nyanza, we're in Nairobi, we're in Mombasa, and we're in Western. So I would kindly urge you to book with us, advertise with us, and you will not get disappointed. Thank you so much, and I'm so happy to be among you.
Mr. Kalombo, you have 1 minute. We would like to start the function.
Ted wants to do the speech for me. I cannot afford him to do that for me because he's struggling to cut weight. He thinks all of us have the same struggle. So he's kept us here waiting for 1 hour, just to talk for 1 hour, for 1 minute. Good evening. Sorry, we began late because you came late. Our apologies all the same. They say the customer is always right, even if they are very wrong, isn't it? I see Dr. Wale in the house. It looks like he has been rained on. I don't know what happened to him in Mombasa. Wale Karibu. Barak Muluka, it's always a pleasure to have you coming. Steve Okeyo, my friend, for many years, I'm humbled to have you in the house. I know when people stand here to talk to you, you imagine that they just walked here to speak to you. Of course I did. But it takes a lot of sweat to prepare those presentations so that they can help you to think out of the box. The reason why we roll out this series is so that we can change the way you think. If we are going to attract you here so that you can think in a noisy manner, then there will be no difference between us and those madmen in the markets. Tonight, I'm humbled to have a strong family representation in this area, led by James. James, stand up and just wave. There are very many veterans in the house tonight, led by Mr. Mutua Mutua. He's my mentor and senior marketing person for many years. There's David Oliwa there. He's called the agency in himself. We have a special guest, Albert Atias, from Israeli, the Fuel Mart CEO. And of course, Ken Onacha. Is he still around? He was in the house. So the house is loaded with big-brained people. Please do not disrupt them when they're engaging their minds to listen to these big people educating them. Thank you so much.
Thank you. A round of applause for Kalombo. William, by the way, right back at you. I'm grateful for all the opportunities you and the other legends have opened for me, Mr. Aliwa. He fed me for very many years through very many other accounts, so I'm grateful. And of course, to my godfather in the building, Wale Daktari, who for 15 years mentored this young man. And I'll tell you stories about him, what he told me in a few minutes' time. Ladies and gentlemen, the reason I keep coming back to this, I have a very well-paying job. That's why you clap. Yeah, keep paying your taxes. No, the reason I keep coming back to host this event is, number one, the kind of people I meet, reconnecting with old faces and old friends, but also, as we've been speaking with various people, it's the changing trend and face of marketing. I'm not as young as I look, but when this thing was starting, there were older people in the audience who maybe only 2 or 3 are in this room now. And I was asking my friend Dennis earlier on that, what can I do to stay relevant? Because I don't want to be that guy of Walio Bobea. I want to be somebody who's evergreen. And he told me, don't get comfortable. And to the young people in the room, don't get comfortable. Allow me just 2 minutes to just tell you who are the other people who have been kind enough to take a table or two. Real Forge Limited, thank you. Nation Media Group, Postal Corporation of Kenya, CARF, Improchem Limited, Resolution Health, MediaBox Advertising, SBO Research Limited, Most Sound Limited, Gynacare Health Services, Creative Garage, Urithi Housing, Tech Squad, James Ngugi and Company Advocates, Swivel Marketing Limited, the Treasury, Blue Crayon Limited, EXP Agency, Consumer Options Limited, Florence 2A, Power Talks Consultants, Radio Africa Group, Scan Group Limited, Kwetu FM, Kenya Airways Limited, Nairobi Securities Exchange, Ferrero East Africa, Safaricom Limited, Coop Bank, Mabati Rolling Mills, Karatina University, Tahiti Homes Limited, Legacy Events, MultiChoice Kenya Limited, CIM Kenya, Access Leo Burnett, Express DDB, Ipsos Limited, Fiolomat Africa Limited, Motion Pictures, the KICC, Kickstart International, and Sian Office Supplies. Thank you very much. Just one round of applause for everybody. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like us to dive to the business of the day. The man I'm about to introduce is a student of sociology. For somebody who got a C in English, you're changing my A too much. I got an A. A for elephant. Okay, he's a student of sociology. Guys, where I come from, some things you just don't try. If you tell my grandmother to say these words, itakuwa shida, she'll curse you. So, you're a student of anthropology, geography, history, technology, and economics. I've learned one. And economics. Ladies and gentlemen, he has a long list of experience. He spent 10 years at the Coca-Cola Company, holding various different managerial positions. He also worked for Lafarge East Africa, responsible for sales and customer service at Bamburi and Hema Cement Companies. And now he is the Regional Direct Sales and Operations Director at Safaricom. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together in a very polite way and welcome Steve Okeo.
Thank you very much, Ted. It's nice to be here, and I see some people that I know from the past, dear friends. Unfortunately, because I see so many people that I know, it means I can't lie, isn't it? So I have to tell the truth. So my job is quite simple. You know, I'd like to come next time and talk for longer, but today I'm going to just talk about being a professional. Who is a professional? I know most of you know who is a professional, but I was given the brief by Kalombo that I have to speak some Queen's English and make it look very complicated so that you take it seriously. So that's what I'm going to do. So the word professional is both an adjective and a noun. Who knows the difference between an adjective and a noun? I'm not going to ask you. Just raise your hand. I'm not going to ask you to tell me what the difference is. So only 6 people know the difference between an adjective and a noun. But that's good enough. That's fine. So as a noun, a professional is a person who is engaged or qualified in a profession. We have to begin academically, then we can wind down. Like a lawyer, an engineer, surveyor, you know. A person who is competent or skilled in a particular activity, an expert, an old hand, a master. A professional is somebody who is connected with a profession. So this is a person who is engaged in a specific activity as one's main preoccupation, rather than a pastime. So it has to be something that helps you to earn a living, you know, not something you do part-time. For example, you can be a professional football player, you know, as long as you earn your living from that. You can be a professional musician, you can be a professional runner, isn't it? Now, this is a person who has or shows the skills appropriate to a professional person. He's competent, he's skillful, he's an expert who is accomplished, masterly, fine, polished, skilled, proficient, competent, able, experienced, trained, deft, businesslike, and so forth. But this term can also be derogatory. It can denote a person who persistently makes a feature of a particular activity or attribute. For example, you can be a professional liar, you know. So the historical meaning of the word professional is from the English term to profess. As people became more and more specialized in their trade, they began to profess their skill to others and vowed to perform their trade to the highest known standard. Did you know that in the old days when there were not universities yet, in the 17th, 16th centuries, we still had doctors at that time, and we had surgeons. We've had surgeons for a long time, even in Africa, when they were building the pyramids. And, you know, all these courses in university were tailored after some experiences. So people used to become doctors by just practicing. So it was common practice that if you suffered frostbite, they would amputate your legs. And who will do it? The local carpenter. Yeah? So over time, the carpenter will become very proficient in amputation, and he will almost become a professional surgeon. These are true stories, by the way. Talk to anyone about old England when you are practicing, when you are learning to be a doctor. You know, in second year, you have to spend a lot of time, what is it called? Operating on cadavers. Dissection. She went to school. She went to school in England. She's a doctor. That's fantastic. Nowadays, when you're training to be a doctor, what happens is that you'll find a cadaver at Chiromo, you know? So you can have your own cadaver and keep on dissecting the whole year, and you keep it, and every day you retrieve it. But in the old days, you had to come to college with your own cadaver. So you can imagine what used to happen in England. This is true. So people had to create their own cadavers, and then you carry that to school. So we owe it to these professionals who were before us for having done things and discovered things for us to become professionals today. In some cultures, the term professional is used to describe certain strata of well-educated workers, commonly engaged in creative and intellectually challenging work. A professional is therefore a member of a profession or a skilled person who earns a living from a specified professional activity, like all of you beautiful people here. So, normally prescribed is the standard of education and training required to prepare members of the particular profession with the particular knowledge and skills necessary to perform their specific role in that function. So, when we heard about our friend, the lawyer, you know, he has to go to law school for a certain number of years, then he has to do clinicals. Is it called clinicals? Sorry? It's called pupillage. It's the doctors who do clinicals, right? Okay, so you can now tell I studied history. So then he has to do pupillage, then he has to be called to the bar, and then he has to do what? No, okay, that's done. And then he has to be registered in a role of advocates, isn't it? Then now he can practice. So having the knowledge alone is not enough. Now we call him a professional. So they are normally subjected to strict codes of conduct so as to uphold rigorous ethical and moral obligations. Like our friends, the accountants, isn't it? They are certified public accountants, and they belong to a board. Even the doctors, there's a medical board where if you do the wrong things, they hold you in front of those people and they smear you and you go scot-free, even if somebody died in the process, right? That's what happens. So standards of practice and ethics are normally agreed upon and maintained through recognized professional associations, such as the Association of Certified Public Secretaries. But not all persons of high expertise are considered professionals. Occupations such as those in construction and maintenance work are generally referred to as trades or crafts. I don't know whether Ted is a professional MC. Can we say he's a professional? He's an artisan. They say you're an artisan. So other activities which are famous, popular in Kenya now, like hustling, tenderpreneurship, and even sex in exchange for money, are generally not seen as being professional. So my job was just to define the topic. So in the context of our society today, I just want to leave you with a few points. Seriously though, as professionals, we cannot leave the business of running society to non-professionals. And we see a lot of non-professionals in the public domain nowadays. So I'd like to leave you with 4 things. Number 1, we must hold things to a higher standard, because as a professional, you're expected to hold the highest standard. So please demand higher standards. of yourself, of people around you, of society. Number 2, stay informed so as to educate others and influence trends. A few days ago, I was talking to a group and I asked the guys, how many people have read a book this year? I'll ask you the same question. How many of you have read a book this year? Not a chemistry book or, yeah. Oh, this is great. This is great. This is fantastic. Please read. If you don't read, you don't gain more knowledge. So as you read, stay informed and influence others. We make up 2% of the society. We are really privileged. We are really privileged as professionals. And it is up to us to help the rest of the society. Number 3, we must be participants and not spectators. You have no excuse for being a spectator. Get involved. Don't be complacent. Give a damn. And number 4, we have the tools and the language as educated people and as professionals to be able to lobby and influence decision makers. Those are the 4 things I leave you with. I'd like to thank you very much for being my customers, because I know both of you, almost all of you, are probably customers of Safaricom. We don't take that for granted. We don't take that for granted. So thank you very, very much for supporting us to be a successful Kenyan story.
Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to welcome our next speaker. He's a seasoned publishing editor and a strategic communications advisor. He's also a writer in politics and a regular commentator on social and public affairs on the global platform. He's a graduate of the University of Nairobi with qualifications in linguistics and English, mass communication, and an MA in Armed Conflict and Peace Studies. He's a PhD researcher in politics and international relations at the University of Leicester, UK, with a special interest in migration studies. Hey. In short, this guy, amesoma sana. Well, he has written and published significant Kenyan biographies and other literary works, and social and political treatises. And he has undertaken ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for the only Barack Muluka.
It's good to see you at close range. I always see you from a distance. And so I'm happy that my good friend Bill invited me here to, among other things, mingle the likes of you, David there. He doesn't come to the gym anymore and started putting on weight in the right places, which is a good thing. And others, I saw Nacha here. My good friend, Dr. Wale Akiemi. I'm actually going to keep it very brief because one of the main reasons I came is that I want to listen to Wale. I love listening to him. Let's clap for him. Yes, I'd also like to recognize the presence in our midst this evening of she who must be obeyed. And she's right here, my wife, Dottie. So I'm very pleased to be with you here. This, I think, is the second time that I have this experience with marketers, and I'd also disclose, of course, that my wife is a marketer herself. I met her about 37 years ago at the University of Nairobi, where she was a student of economics. And she markets me also sometimes. Now, I'd like to begin by making a disclaimer because on occasions such as this, it's important that I make a disclaimer. First, as Barack, when I speak on occasions such as this, I speak from a ground of positive neutrality, because I'm going to talk about politics, and I'm going to talk about professionals in politics, and naturally I'm going to talk about our own Kenyan context. If I talk about the Kenyan context, it's also going to turn out that I'm going to talk about situations which some of you may be familiar with. I'm going to talk about situations which some of you may not be very familiar with. But I want to assure you that I am positively non-aligned, and therefore I speak neutrally, because I do not want some of the dangerous objects that I can see in front of you to come flying this direction. I say that because when I was a young man, I used to go to Sunday school in my village in Emanyudia, somewhere in western Kenya. And it was a very small church. If you are thinking about the places where you go to worship and you are thinking that's the kind of place I'm talking about, perish the thought. This was a little grass-thatched structure, and it had banana leaves for walls. We were still thinking about building a church in the future. And my father was not a very regular church goer. However, every Christmas he would show up to worship with the rest of us. Lots of us go to church only on Christmas Day. And my father was one of those ones, in spite of the fact that today he's an ordained church minister of the Anglican Church of Kenya, where we all grew up as a family. But I do recall this specific occasion when he came in, and the sermon was very well in progress, when he suddenly stood up and he started rebuking the preacher. He started telling him, don't you have anything else you can talk about except talking about me? Every Sunday, every time I come to this church, you just talk about me. That is why I don't come here, because I don't like this thing of you preaching about me. If you don't have anything else to talk about, then you should stop preaching. Of course, we were all taken aback, because we didn't know that the man was talking about our dad, and we got a little offended. And some of you here might get a little offended, because you might think I'm talking about your dad, or I'm talking about somebody who is very close to you. That will just be a coincidence. William Colombo has asked me to come here, certainly because he knows that I now belong to the National Institutional Memory. I belong to the National Institutional Memory, and I say that without any fear of doubt or contradiction, because I can remember where I was on Saturday, the 5th day of July, like next week. It's going to be, I don't know how many years, about 47 years next week, 5th of July, 1969. I remember where I was when I first heard that a certain Omwami had been killed in the city center in Nairobi, and that people were fighting. It would turn out that Omwami, as I was told by my mother's youngest sister at that time, was none other than Tom Mboya, who was killed in the streets of this city on Saturday, the 5th day of July 1969. And the activities that did take place in this country from that time, including what happened right across this road here at the Holy Family Basilica, where the required mass for Tom Mboya was conducted on that day, are still very fresh in my memory. I remember that day because my mother was one of the people who came to attend the required mass for Tom Mboya here at the Holy Family Basilica, and she came back home without her shoes. She came back home walking barefoot because of the things that happened here. And I have got among my siblings a younger sister who was born a couple of weeks, 2 weeks later. And my mother keeps on telling her, hey, I almost gave birth to you in the streets of Nairobi, in the city center, because of those happenings. The political intellectual fiber has remained strident since that time, and therefore I do believe that it's with a certain justified latitude that I do speak about political happenings in this country and certainly elsewhere in the world. I recall the year 1974 when I was a young man in high school that I did come across a poster somewhere in Ofafa Jericho where I lived, and I hope that some of our people from Ofafa Jericho are here. Wasemko? Yes. And so, as I was ambling around in the estate, I came across a poster posted on a kiosk. The kiosk belonged to somebody we called John, and John was from Nyahururu. And there was a picture of a very handsome gentleman, and he'd written there in Kiswahili words to the effect that my campaign rallies have been banned, but I'm still a candidate. Vote for the truth, vote for justice, vote for J.M. Kariuki. And J.M. Kariuki was a politician such as this country has never produced again. There was none like him, and there hasn't been one. And we loved him. Boy, did we love him. The following, yeah, whenever you mention the name J.M. Kariuki, such things begin happening. And this is because they killed him the following year. They captured him from the Hilton Hotel, once again, a few meters from here. And I remember the members of parliament, which is just across here, those days saying things to the effect that you can kill J.M. Kariuki, but you can never kill his spirit. And so when you hear some of those sounds that we've just heard, it's his spirit telling us that I'm still alive. You can never destroy that kind of spirit. It lives on. And so, with that kind of background, I will make a few brief remarks on the question that I've been asked to focus on, which is the question of professionals in politics. And I want to recognize what Steve Okeyo has already told us, and therefore I will refrain from trying to redefine who a professional is, because my good brother Steve Okeyo has already done that for me. I want to tell this gathering here about a certain gentleman who lived between the year 1892 and the year 1984. He was a German gentleman. His full names were Friedrich Gustav Emil Martin Normler. He was born in Germany, grew up in Germany, matured there, and of course had a lot of the Germanic experience of his times. As you can very well imagine, somebody being born in 1892 in Europe was getting to maturity at the time of the Second World War, which of course Germany was the main theater of the wretchedness that informed Europe at that time. The madness that started in Europe and spread right across the world. It got right here in Kenya. My grandmother, who lived in Pumwani, Nairobi, used to tell us about the experience that they had at that time during the Second World War. And lots of atrocious things did happen, some of which we still hear about today, and some of the dramatis personae are still paying the price for those wretched activities. Martin Numla was a theologian at that time. He was a member of the clergy, specifically working for the Lutheran Church. And initially, he supported the activities of Adolf Hitler, who was the main star in the activities of the Second World War. But with the full passage of time, he started rebelling against some of the things that Adolf Hitler and his people were doing. He was initially himself pro the activities and completely anti-Semitic. We have got a visitor here, I've been told, from Israel, and I know that is very familiar with this narrative because the Jews were right at the heart of it. And Numla, having had that experience, did come out of it, having, of course, served 8 years in the concentration camp and somehow managed to survive. And when he got out, he wrote a few lines that have become extremely famous in global conversations on matters of political economies. He wrote, and I will recite, he wrote, "First, they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me. Then they came for me." There are people in the professional class who flatter themselves with the thought that they do not belong and should not belong to politics. They tell you things to the effect that I don't watch the news because I don't like politics. They say switch to something else, switch to music, switch to drama, switch to some form of entertainment because I do not like politics. When you go to the place of work, they say, oh, now that is politics, because politics is supposed to be dirty. It's been christened a dirty game, so it should be left to the politicians. And somehow we kind of deceive ourselves with the illusion that we can separate politics from the rest of our activities. And we live in the world of wishful thinking. That even when we go to the shops and we are scrambling around for flour, and a little while ago someone sent me one of those things that are sent on the social media, on Twitter, and they are sent on WhatsApp, and I could see Kenyans are scrambling for flour in a supermarket. And Kenyans think nothing of such things, especially the professionals. They think it's a passing wind. Tomorrow things will be back to normal. And when their doctors go on strike for 100 days, they think it is normal. The last time the doctors in this country were on strike, the rest of the professional classes went on with the activities. That's for the doctors. The political class understood that was for the doctors, including those who are being directly addressed. Some went to Kisumu to ask their tribesmen to register in big numbers so that we can beat these guys in the next elections. Others went to speak to their tribesmen around Mount Kenya, saying our Udhamaki is almost going. Come out and register in big numbers so that we can protect Udhamaki. Today, nurses are on strike in this country. I think this is the 25th day. And we are carrying on with life as usual. You know, the tragedy with tragedy is that it's like leprosy. Leprosy creeps up on you slowly. You do not realize that it's creeping up on you until the day it has eaten you up and there's nobody to speak for you. When bad things happen, we believe that they happen to other people. We don't believe that they can happen to us. Whether we are talking about road accidents, plane crashes, HIV and AIDS, robberies, hold-ups, we think they are things that happen to other people. We don't think that they are things that can happen to us until the day that they descend upon us. When I was growing up in this country in the 60s and 70s, we flattered ourselves here in Kenya that we were the El Dorado of East Africa. In fact, we laughed at our neighbors and described ourselves as an island of peace and prosperity in a sea of wretchedness that was Africa. It was the age of coup d'etats all over the place, right from 1960, when Sylvanus Olympio was overthrown in Togo, to the 80s, when things were still happening in Equatorial Guinea with Mathias Ngwema, when in Uganda they were having 4 or 5 different presidents in the space of 12 months. We thought that such things just happened to other people there. Far away on the other coast, there was a place called Ivory Coast, under a certain Felix Houphouët-Boigny. It was the El Dorado of West Africa. Thrifty, very successful, laughing at Nigeria and Ghana, the homes of coups d'etat. So there's a sense in which you believe that these things happen to other people. Right now, we are in a situation where the political decibels are heightening at an astronomical pace. When you hear President Uhuru Kenyatta, who is my president, speaking, he's angry. At some point, I get afraid. Not afraid of myself. I don't fear for myself. Because like Julius Caesar, I always be Caesar. I fear for him that he might burst a vein in the process. And there'll be a lot of trouble. When I listen to my deputy president speaking, ventilating anger, I fear for him. When I listen to the opposition leaders, Raila Amolo Odinga, Kalonzo Musyoka, and others around them, I fear for them I said, this one is going to collapse. God save him. But we of the professional class, we go home, watch TV, have a glass of wine, go to sleep. We wake up the next morning, we hear in Barclays, they're retrenching. We know that it happens to other people. It will not happen to me. We go to the supermarkets, we find there's no flour, there's no milk, there are no other things. We know tomorrow they will come back because this is Kenya. We see KQ, and KQ, thank you for bringing us here and for lifting me every so often. Sometimes I get worried who is going to be lifting me. We hear things happening there. We say, oh, this is KQ inefficiency. We have seen Mumias go down, virtually dead. We've seen Zoya. We are hearing of banks getting into trouble. And we are imagining that these are passing clouds. My friend, very soon it will be you. That job which you think you are very comfortable in, those loans which you've taken from the bank, that car which you are driving, these days the loans come easily, the bankers just look for you. Ask she who must be obeyed what it was like 35 years ago when we started working about getting a loan from the bank with the security. These days, they waylay you and force a loan on you so that you can go and buy a car. When trouble happens, they recall it at a supersonic speed and pace. But you have told yourself that you are not going to participate in politics. And you have seen that when the political class wants to address issues, they don't invite you to a gathering like this one to come and talk to you. I have not seen President Kenyatta talking to professionals, Big Ted. Tell His Excellency I'd like him to invite professionals and tell them what is in it for them in this country. I have not seen Raila Odinga having a gathering with the professionals. They address the people whom in social science we call the great unwashed masses, the holoi polloi. Because those are the people who are going to vote for them. And remember that with all those degrees which we have had Big Ted reading here, some people have got I don't know how many of them, that with all of those and many more which you are still adding yourself, your vote has got the same gravity. Your one vote, the same gravity with that of the most illiterate individual in the country, be he or she a cattle rustler, a witch doctor, or whatever. Your one vote. But when it comes to the running of the country's affairs and to the laws that they make across the street here, they are made for you. The taxation laws are made for you. I've seen that Andrew Koiti Omutata has gone to court and that he has caused the recently enacted retirement benefits laws to be suspended. And I don't know how many of us here are conscious of the fact that there was no public participation in the enactment of those laws, and they touch on you directly. Those laws which Okoiti Omtata stopped the other day in the courts across here. Thank you, Andrew, for bringing this, William, for bringing this gathering here. This is the theater where all these things seem to happen. From Parliament to the office of the President, to the law courts, to City Hall. This is the center of the theater of the absurd. And when Omtata is stopping these things, we look at him as the professional class and we say, what is wrong with this guy? He's a little demented. When he goes to chain himself out there at Vigilance House, we say, behold, a madman. In a few years' time, when it's time for you to retire, then you're going to understand what the madman was doing, which was for you. When they pass taxation laws, they touch on you. And Kenyans are among the most highly taxed people in the world, second only to Israel. But in Israel, you can see what the taxes do. In Kenya, you cannot see what the taxes do unless you go to the internet. And I start understanding what they meant when they said theirs was going to be a digital government, because the projects which they have done can be seen digitally. And the others out there, we have been told by the ones who are inside that the others don't have any idea. They just copy our ideas. And that makes me very worried, because I start feeling that if these other guys come in, it's not going to be a fundamental change. It's just going to be a change of guard. That the guard who was there in the morning goes home in the evening, and another one comes. And because we surrender you to that space, when you get into this house, that house changes you. We have seen good people who went into this house across here, people who represented hope, people we thought were going to be votaries of change, but when they got there, the environment changed them instead. They became like everybody else that went there. So I want to start summarizing, because I want to listen to the great Dr. Wale Akinyemi, my good friend. We have the choice. We can assume that it's going to remain like this forever, even as it is collapsing. Sierra Leone collapsed, descended into anarchy. In the late 80s, early 90s, all the way to 2000s, the militias would descend upon your house and they would capture you having eaten everything that you have there. They would ask you, do you want a long sleeve or do you want a short sleeve? And they would stretch out your hand on the chopping board. And if you said you wanted a short sleeve, they would chop it from somewhere here. If you said you wanted a long sleeve, they chopped it from somewhere near the wrist. Now, when you see certain things happening, I'm not a prophet of doom, But I've got to tell you where your country is going, because it was not always like this. In the 60s, we had people who respected each other here. They may disagree in political principles, but they respected one another. They did not speak and spew the kind of poison that you are seeing out there today. And so, if we tell ourselves that we are okay, we are not okay. We have got to start asking ourselves, what role do I play? Professional organizations such as yours must start taking positions on issues. The LSK takes positions on issues. Of course, it's a body that was born out of enactment from across here. But all of us, these other bodies of ours, are also recognized by law, and we must take positions on issues. Marketers must take a position. Doctors must take a position. Engineers must take positions. And taking positions does not necessarily mean accosting the government of the day, because many times the government of the day is also right. And I can tell you as a political writer that I've got a lot of problems with my compatriots. I write something for the Standard, or I speak on KTN or on Citizen TV, and when I get out of that place, my Twitter handle is full of insults. Insults from Jubilee fanatics, insults from NASA fanatics. I said 10 things, and because one thing that I said did not please the Jubilee sycophants out there, they are calling me idiot, imbecile. They do not accost the argument that I made. They accost my person. And I say, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they are doing. We need to take positions. We need to also participate in competitive politics, so that we don't say, oh, Big Ted, he was a good professional. These things of going close to State House, they have messed him up. Now see, he's now going into politics. What a loss of a good man and an artist. We must participate and help that space to become better. In the end, we deserve the government that we have. We deserve the leaders that we have. For the first time in my long and rich life, I have seen somebody offering himself to be the CEO of Nairobi, and he's saying, I'm not very good, I will be doing the politics, but I'm coming with this one here. He's the one who will be running government. And so I can't help asking, but why couldn't we just have had the other one? Who is good, who is going to run government? And I cry for my city, because I was born and brought up in this city. In the days when I was growing up in the city of Nairobi, we had a functional public transport system. We had Kenya Bus, which plied across the city. I lived in Fafa, Jericho, across there. And I knew always when exactly number 7 would be coming. I knew exactly when number 19 to Angige would be coming. There were no cell phones. We made appointments. Those of us who had beautiful girlfriends like this one here, we agreed that we are going to meet at Café de Paris I don't know whether it's still there. I need to go and check. Café de Paris. At such and such a time. And you knew the bus that you were going to take would arrive on time. And you would get to Café de Paris at the appointed time. I grew up in an Eastlands estate, which the City Council of Nairobi used to paint the houses once every year. They gave us a dustbin, they collected garbage, they manicured the lawns, and we had bougainvillea everywhere. And it was a true green city in the sun. There was no litter, not even paper. I grew up in a city where the paths to our homes, to our houses, were tarmacked in Ziwani, in Kaloleni, in Makongeni, in Shaurimoyo, in Eastlands, in Kariobangi. I'm not talking about this place here. This place here belonged to people we called Wababe. And we didn't come there very much, Wababe. They lived in Babylon, and we lived in Salem. We were Salemites, and they were Babylonians. But we were quite comfortable in Salem and Harlem. We drank water straight from the taps because it was treated by the City Council of Nairobi. When we fell ill, we walked to the dispensary in Ofafa, Lumumba, even in the night where we were injected. And when we grew a little older and we were privileged to be students at the University of Nairobi across here, and occasionally we had a few shillings in the pocket, we ambled across the park in the evening with our girlfriends and came to the Garden Square restaurant for a good dance to the tunes and beats of the great orchestra Le Mangue Pas. A few beers down the line, we strolled gently through the park, past the big hotel, back to the halls of residence. That would be about 2 o'clock a.m. And there was nobody to intimidate or harass us. As residents of Nairobi, you must claim that. You must reclaim your city. Going forward, we must restore our country to order, and professionals have got a very critical role to play. Thank you very much.
Of course, I have something to say. Thank you. Great words, food for thought. Barak, thank you very much. And I'd like to assure you that there's some young men who also came from Eastlands, who God has favored to work in government. And we are the change in that government, regardless of whatever is going on. And we shall change. We've started, na tutaendelea. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to give out some vouchers as we marinate on the great words that we've just had. All right? If anything that you'll hear tonight, remember that you can make a change, regardless of how small it is. All right? Now, I want to give out some vouchers. Now, please don't do, table 14, don't do the thing of shouting answers. All right? Who can give me 5 centers, AR centers, in the city or in the country? 5. Okay, table 14. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for the Dr. Wale Akinyemi. I told you, keep clapping like in the air. Yeah? Then we'll.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Wow, Barak, you have absolutely killed it. What a mind, isn't it? What a mind. You know, and it would have been a total waste to have such a mind and just be an armchair politician. it would have been a total waste. So I have been so inspired. You know, and I'm going to make an announcement here that I told him, I said, because of people like him and some things that I went through in my life in recent times, I made some decisions. I have always been very passionate about Africa. When Kalumbo asked, and whenever I go, he said, how do you want to be introduced? I always say, introduce me as a passionate African. That's who I am. I have worked in over 20 African countries. And I just see Africa, the problem is the same. You know, so I'm very, very passionate about that. And I have all these thoughts. I have been writing for years. I started my career in 1989 at the Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies in Nigeria. And so I've always been at a place where I see what needs to be done. But I've always just talked about what needs to be done. Then last year, something happened to me. I was very ill last year. A lot of people didn't know. And so I just disappeared from circulation for a while. I just went totally disappeared. You know, it was that kind of sickness that you are almost looking, they say that hill there, that is heaven. You know, I was that sick. And then I realized some very, very fundamental things, some deep things. I said, if I died with the things I know that I have not executed, then my life would have been a waste. And so I made up my mind that I was just going to go on a roll when I got out, and I was going to make a significant difference. And one of the things I decided after consultation with my family that I was going to do was that I was going to build my capacity and then go back to Nigeria and run for the presidency of Nigeria. Now, I know that probably doesn't mean a thing to some of you, but I realized there's no way. I have worked for governments, I have counseled governments, I've counseled presidents, I have done that, and I get frustrated when I sit down and people are just taking Africa. I mean, we had a president. Nigeria was a country that for a couple of years, the only good luck we had was the name of the president. How do you explain that? How do you explain that? That was the only good luck we had. So, and I said, I'm not going to be one of those people who will just, I was in Nigeria and my vice president asked me, because I was in Nigeria and I was talking about Kenya throughout. And he said, how did we lose you to Kenya? You know, and so, thank you, Barack. You know, it's because of people like you that we realize that we will be hypocrites if we just sit, watch, and complain. That said, I know it's pretty late. Yesterday I was speaking at the conference of the Kenya Association of Hoteliers and Caterers. And it's my 5th year working with them. And my session was 2:45 p.m., but I started speaking at 7 p.m. So history has repeated itself again tonight. So I decided, because I talk for a living most of the time, I said, how do you stop someone who talks for a living from talking for long? So just before I was called to speak, I felt the urge to go to the washroom. So I decided, I'm not going to pee now. Let me just hold it. That is the way I can ensure that I will not talk for long. So I get there and I have held it. You know how you hold it? So I thought I was being intelligent, saying, I know time is well spent, so I will not talk for long. Then my friend, Vora, said, no, just take all the time you are supposed to take. Just take it. I said, then we have a problem. So since that happened yesterday, what I decided to do today, once Barack finished, I went to the washroom. So are you ready? Let me start by saying a person who thinks at 40 the same way he thought at 20 has wasted 20 years of his life. That means nothing has changed. And that's the way Africa has been. We're thinking at 50 the way we thought at 20. When I was young, what were the problems we faced? Water. All the politicians, they made promises. Water, electricity, roads, hospitals, and schools. 1978, 79 election that brought in Shehu Shagari. Today, what are they promising? Exactly the same things. In fact, you can take a video of the 1978 election and play it today without editing. It is still valid. So if your problems have not changed, transformation has not happened. And if you repeat the mistakes of those you criticized, you have wasted your life. So I want to talk about this so-called leadership curse. But you know, as Africans, anything we don't understand, we ascribe to supernatural forces. So when you don't understand, you say it is a curse. Not knowing it is your stupidity that has brought you there. You know, in the book, The Wealth and Poverty of Nations by David Landes, he identified certain geographical elements that affected productivity of nations. And he looked at the tropical nations and temperate nations. And he found out that in the tropical nations, the heat had a negative effect on productivity. So by mid-afternoon, they are hot and they slow down. And that affected productivity. And even now, you and I know that when we go to some places, things are generally slower, isn't it? Except but in the temperate region, people are working hard, and that cold actually aids productivity. Then, people in the tropical areas had to fight things, parasites that did not exist in any other place. So, we had to fight the lethargy, the heat, the fatigue, and then mosquitoes. And we just had to fight them. And this looked like we were at a disadvantage. But then, and so, was it a curse to be born in a place like Africa? But Landes himself now answers the question. In the same book, he looked at some very hot places and saw that all they needed to do to improve productivity was technology, called an air conditioner. And that changed the game. Now, in another book, Why Nations Fail, by Dan Acemoglu and James Robinson, they now take the thought further that in spite of the natural forces, some nations rose up because they established the right structures and institutions. A case study being North and South Korea, which had the exact same climatic conditions, but the South became such a global player because of its structure and institutions. So in discussing Africa's leadership curse, let us identify what the curse is not. The curse is not a lack of resources. We do not lack resources in Africa. World Bank statistics says remittances to Africa by Western Union and MoneyGram from 2015 to 2016 was $35.2 billion. Now that's a lot of money. So the problem is not, now listen, compare that with foreign direct investment, which was 54 billion. So what we sent home, what we got for free was 65% of what our leaders were going to canvass for. And if we factor the cost of getting what they got, we may realize that there was really no difference. It is not the lack of resources. I read a book some time ago, some statistics, and it said if all the money in the world was divided equally, that everybody on earth got the same amount of money, in 5 years, the money would have redistributed itself. So those who were rich before will be rich again. Those who were poor before will be poor again. Because money is not the solution to a financial problem. It is a way of thinking. It's a way of thinking. So, it is not that we lack money. It's not like we lack brain power. Let me show you some inventions that have come from the continent. A lot of people don't know this, but do you know that mathematics originated from Africa? All right? The oldest known possible mathematical object is called the Lebombo bone, which was discovered in the Lebombo mountains of Swaziland. All right? So, mathematics came from here. Medicine came from here. All right? This one I just discovered when I was researching this, that even speech originated from Africa. Using estimates supported by genetic, archaeological, and evidence that language emerged somewhere in sub-Saharan Africa. That means the first words by humans were spoken by Africans. Architecture and engineering, we talk about the pyramids, that for 3,800 years, nobody could defeat their thinking. Then we talk of mining and minerals, tools and metallurgy, navigation, started from here, astronomy, philosophy, and art, all originated from Africa. If you are African, come and clap for yourself. Then let's now look at inventions by people of African descent. Do you know that the refrigerator was invented by a black person? Traffic lights were invented by black people, by a black person. And I found that really amazing that we invented it and we don't keep it. The lawnmower, the ironing board, automatic doors for elevators, security cameras, gas masks, pacemakers, automatic gear transmission, peanut butter, potato chips, and the best of all, ice cream. All these were invented by black people. So, where was the curse when these people were inventing these things? Isn't that a valid question? Where was the curse? All right? Now, I remember when I was working with the Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies in the late 80s, we had to do a research called the Nigerian National Character, and basically looking at how Nigerians behaved before colonial rule. And you'll be shocked at what we found. Somebody is traveling, say the distance of Nairobi to Nyeri. When they get to certain place at night, they will see fruits. There are fruits and lamps that have been left there. So if you're hungry, you can take fruits, and they have some cowrie shells. That was the denomination, the currency then. So you will put the equivalent amount of cowrie shells and take the fruits and go. I said, my goodness, today, you will take all the fruits that are there, then go and look for the farmer in his house. Ask him for what he has there. So, where was the ball dropped? Where? Some people attribute it to colonial rule. Maybe they have a point. But you know what? And I'll show you some things. This is from a memo from the British High Commissioner in Accra, Ghana, to the Home Office in 1961. Because it says, years ago when Kwame Nkrumah began his crusade for the powerful African state, this is what the High Commissioner sent in a dispatch to the Commonwealth Relations Office in London. He said, to us it is particularly galling to have this egoist, Nkrumah, shouting us to take off the brakes of Rhodesia's and Nyanza and Kenya and drive faster down the road of independence, which we know much better than he does. And his knack for giving expression to the feelings of so many Africans who are all the time becoming more politically conscious is exasperating. I can well understand the fury he arouses in London. I often share it myself. He wants to kick us out of Africa. He opposes us over the common market and has the impertinence to start talking about a commonwealth without Britain. Much the best course would be for us to kick him out of the commonwealth. We shall be better without him. And we know what happened. All right? And there are so many others like that, where you do find there was a lot of influence. I find it very interesting that now people talk about elections being influenced, but we learned from the best. Now listen. So, there was a major part that colonial rule played in destroying Africa. But we need to move away from that argument. It has been too long, it no longer passes. Now, when I'm researching on this, then I realized that other parts of the world were also colonized. Canada, Australia, New Zealand are still part of the British Empire today. And I have the Queen as the head of state. However, again, one may argue that they are not culturally different from their colonizers. And so not much damage was done. So the chief strategy of colonization, and which is what has evolved in what we now call this curse, was to strip people of their identity and impose a new identity on them. This new identity made them see themselves as inferior and see their traditions as inferior. That now made them to hunger for, we want to be like these other people. We want to be like them. And this went on till independence. But listen to what happened. When we got political independence, we did not get economic independence. And that was part of the problem. Because economic independence was not possible without mental independence. So there was still a dependence on the master, one way or the other. Now, while colonial rule played a part, like I said, it is no longer an excuse. So what is the way forward? How do we get out of this so-called curse? Number one, we need to get our identity back. We need to celebrate our own. And that's one thing. One thing that really upsets me is you see a pastor who has never seen Jomo Kenyatta International Airport speak with an American accent. And I said, what is your problem? Never seen it. Then you see somebody who has traveled for a few days, come back and wanna gonna. Why? Because we have lost that sense of identity. We need to celebrate our own. Tell the person next to you, I celebrate you. And it's already happening. We're going to celebrate ourselves culturally. I was in Mozambique doing some work for the UN, and we went for a party after. And do you know, the music they were playing the salsa and all that, and a few people were there. But when the band was played, and they started playing Nigerian music, guess what? Everybody went on the dance floor. They didn't understand the words they were saying. You know, people say Ojo Elegba, and I say, what does Ojo Elegba mean? People have no clue, but they dance. Isn't it? And that is so great because people like these Nigerian artists, people like Sauti Sol, their music is played all over the world. Nigerian movies change the image of Nigeria in Kenya more than the Nigerian embassy. Isn't it? So we need to begin to celebrate our own. We need to begin. I remember there's a speaker, an author, one of my favorite authors, Malcolm Gladwell. I wanted Malcolm Gladwell to come to Kenya, so contacted him, and he charged me, he was going to charge me for 1 hour of a keynote speech and 30 minutes of Q&A, $172,000. But you know what? The truth is, if we bring him, a lot of people will show up. Why? Because he's from America. If you want to have a crusade or a meeting and you want it to succeed, just put a face and say, Reverend so-and-so, USA. It will be full. And this is part of the problem we have. Until we celebrate our own identity. We celebrate who we are. You know, I was reading some statistics, but this is a few years ago. 70,000 expatriates, 70,000 Africans migrated to the EU and to the US. All right? And when they get there, they start at the bottom. They are paid small bucks and all that. In the same period, 100,000 expatriates were hired in Africa and paid higher than they would have been paid where they came from. Until we celebrate our own, we will put ourselves in bad situations and we'll say it's a curse. So it is so important to celebrate what we have. A society that does not allow originality will never transform. Because great societies have always been built on the platform of authenticity. You know, it's interesting. The French learned as the French. The Germans as the Germans. Not as American Germans or British Germans. Am I making sense? So, if we do not celebrate our own, we're not going to move out of this so-called curse. Let's look at the Koreas. South Korea produced Samsung, Hyundai, and all those things, isn't it? North Korea has produced bombs. Now, before we laugh at them, at least they have produced a bomb. What have we produced? Now, listen, that means if the North was directed properly, they would have used their capabilities to develop not just bombs, but other things, isn't it? What is the difference between the North and the South? Environment. Exactly the same climate, exactly the same thing, but the South created an environment where you could think diverse things. So you could think, I could start a company and call it Samsung. I can do Hyundai. I can do all this. But the young people in the North, the only thing they can dream of is joining the military and building bombs. So the environment, innovation cannot rise beyond the environment provided for it. And so that's very, very crucial. The environment, when I was growing up, we were punished for speaking our language in school. Isn't it? We were punished. Now, a society that punishes children for speaking their own language needs to be rethought. They need to get born again. When children grow up being punished for being original, they will always shy away from being authentic. And that is part of what happened in Africa. So you had a generation that was always criticized for being original. When I was 5 years old and my mother bought me my first wristwatch, she said, put it on your left. I said, why? She said, you ask too many questions. That's how people have always done it. I said, is there any other reason? She said, no. So I put it on my right. 50 years down the line, it is still on my right and I'm alive. That means there was no consequence. There was no consequence. We just do things because somebody else has done it. We don't want to be authentic. Come on, tell somebody, I celebrate you one more time. The environment that will inspire creativity is an environment, listen, that must have a budget for mistakes. But in our society, we have no budget for mistakes, isn't it? Once somebody makes one mistake, idiot, you're like your father. You will just be useless for the rest of your life. Listen, innovation is the offspring of intelligent thought and intelligent error. When intelligent thinking combines with intelligent error, then you have innovation. Don't be scared of your own greatness. Face it and fail with dignity if you have to. Then the next thing, to get out of this so-called curse, build your conversion capacity. What do I mean by conversion capacity? Africans, we have money, we have resources. But let me tell you a story. Are you ready? When you think of cars, let's go to the United States. We think of the Chevrolet, we think of the Lincoln, we think of the Cadillac, we think of Ford, we think of Chrysler, Buick. We think of so many cars from the United States. Let's go to Great Britain. Rolls-Royce, Bentley, Aston Martin, the Land Rover family with the Range Rovers and all that. Yes or no? Then we go to Italy. We have the Lamborghini, Ferrari, Maserati, Fiat. Then we go to France. We have Peugeot, we have the Renault, we have Citroën, we have the Bugatti. Then we go to Germany. We have the Mercedes-Benz, we have the BMW, we have the Volkswagen family, the Audi, the Passat, the Quattro. We have all those. Porsche, all of these from Germany. Then we go to Japan. We have Toyota, Nissan, Mazda, Subaru. And they just go on and on. Even Toyota, you have a Lexus, and you have all that. Then you go to South Korea, you have Hyundai, and all that. Now, you do know that all these places I have mentioned are countries. And some of them smaller than Nairobi. Then we come to Africa. 1.3 billion people. And we have not created one car that can be celebrated on the global market. And we think we are cursed. We are not cursed. We are mumus. We don't use our heads. It's called conversion power. The ability to convert from one form to the other. Now, you know what? A lot of these countries, the iron ore, the rubber, they get it from here. But the ability to convert, you see, man, every creature that God made, man is unique. And I'll tell you why. Do you know that creatures that God made, they live on primary supply? What does that mean? The carnivore eats meat as is. Have you ever seen a lion say, let us roast this buffalo before we eat it? Then the herbivore eats grass as is. Have you seen the buffalo say, let us grill or let us boil this grass? Man is the one that has been created with the ability to convert from one form to the other. We convert from groundnut to groundnut oil, to soap, to butter, to a whole lot of things. That means man that does not exercise his conversion power is living at an animalistic level of existence. All my life I grew up hearing about the potential of Africa. Can you take potential to the shop and spend? You cannot spend potential. You have to be able to convert potential into something tangible. And that is part of our problem. We need leadership that will be able to convert, that will see a fool and convert the fool into a genius. We need leadership that does not see finality. Now, I said earlier on that remittances to Africa in 1 year, $35.2 billion, isn't it? Now, where is that money? Who knows where that money is right now? I will tell you. I will tell you. You see, there is one phenomenon that happens in Africa now, not just in Kenya, around Africa. And we celebrate that phenomenon. It's called the mall. There are malls springing up everywhere, isn't it? And we get excited that a new mall has opened. I mean, when KFC launched out in Kenya, I remember the queue from Ame. It was amazing. Isn't it? So those malls, we are excited. KFC, yay! Burger King, yay! Subway, game, so we're so excited about these malls. So that $35.2 billion, when it comes, we run to the mall and we go to KFC, to Burger King. So where is that money? It is back where it came from. Because people who lack conversion power will serve at the mercy of those who have conversion power. Listen, recently you heard that the United States aircraft carrier is moving towards South Korea, to the Korean Peninsula. Yes, so you heard that story? They are moving a lot of stuff there. Why? Is it because they like South Korea? Let me break it down for you. Trade between Kenya and South Korea in the last one year, 2015, 2016, hovered between $300 and $500 million. Trade between Kenya and the United States, between $300 and $500 million. Trade between the United States and South Korea, between $40 billion and $60 billion. So guess what? They are protecting their trade. It's not that they like South Korea. Now, if you had a neighbor like North Korea threatening Kenya, you think they will move the aircraft carrier here? No, they will issue a travel advisory. Don't go to Kenya. What gives you a global place? What gives you a global voice is the conversion power of your mind. That's what gives you a global voice. The conversion power of your mind. A society that celebrates its malls more than its factories is in trouble. Big trouble. So many human beings have landlocked brains. Nothing is going out, nothing is coming in. They can only build from precedent. But there is a level, ladies and gentlemen, where you can benchmark your imagination. And that's how transformation happens. Who were the first pyramids? Those guys, who were they benchmarking? Nobody. We need to create something that will change the world like our ancestors did. Don't be a victim of, now listen to this, don't be a victim of the diminishing return value of information. What do I mean by that? Where the more knowledge you get, the more ignorant you become. There's a phenomenon like that. You see, knowledge comes from process and execution. When I was young, if I needed to study about something, there was the Encyclopedia Britannica. By the time you finally get to what you are studying on, you have learned so much along the way. Today, you will learn what you want without the foundational knowledge to sustain it. So even though you have a lot of knowledge, you are still an ignoramus. And that is so important. But how do we mitigate against that? Execution. That means we can, in the absence of process, we can go through execution. That means we learn and let's do something different. If we have to fail, let us fail fast and get up and move on. It is so important. Now, to do that, you must have the mind of a transformer. I have always described transformation. I said, when you hear transatlantic, it means across the Atlantic. Trans-Sahara means across Sahara. Trans-Zoya, you know what that means. So transform means across form, a movement from one form to the other. from the egg to the larva to the pupa to the butterfly. But what we call transformation in Africa is excessive activity within one form. So you are red egg today, blue egg tomorrow, yellow egg, but you are still an egg. And why is that so? And these are the things we call curse. No entity can develop beyond the mental capacity and the guts of its decision makers. None. That's a part of what we are calling the curse. You know, we must rebel against conformity. We must rebel. I've always said, if your memory is more active than your imagination, you are an endangered species. A lot of people keep talking, oh, this is how we used to do it. That is how it was. You know, that is how it was. Let me tell you something. Ignorance grows. Ignorance is not static. Ignorance grows on those who do not expand their minds. It grows. So the rate of your mind growth must be exponentially greater than the encroaching power of ignorance. There's nothing like once brilliance, always brilliant. Some people were brilliant. My father was a brilliant medical doctor, graduated in 1965, but I tell him if he's using the same method he learned in 1965 in 2017, he'll be a serial killer. Because everything has changed. So you as an individual, you're going to be that great leader so you don't repeat the things we have criticized. You have to be a person who thinks transformation. Well, you know, one of the byproducts of colonial rule was the mass production of managers and not leaders. So you had people who were trained to manage what the colonial leaders had established. And they simply passed it on. So that culture of management was so strong. Everything was geared to manage what has been created. And this gave birth to a whole generation of people who just managed, who were not creating. We just managed. But there is a reason, and this is a key reason why we have been stuck in one form across Africa, in the same form. We've just been stuck there. I mean, who is talking about water? Oh, water problems 50 years after independence. 50 years after independence. When I first came to Kenya, there were no generators because power never went. I am so sad that Kenya is towing the line of another country that I know. That country that I know, people from that country shout. They don't talk, no, they shout. You know why they shout? Because they never have power. Everybody has a generator making noise. Kenyans 10 years from now will be shouting more than Nigerians. So, listen. You have to think and ask yourself. This is what those leaders didn't ask. You ask yourself, what is the next form of my life? What is the next form of marketing? What is the next form of what we're doing? And then let me begin to wrap this up. You are marketers, so let me push this to you also, like I pushed to the hoteliers yesterday. As a nation, we need to define what is the Kenyan experience. What is the Kenyan experience? I do a lot of work in the area of creating customer experiences. France is associated with luxury. Silicon Valley is associated with innovation. Hollywood is associated with creativity. And all that. Monaco is associated with everything luxurious. All right? What is the Kenyan experience? Because if we don't define our own experience, others will define it for us. And that's why they called us a hotbed of terror. The day you stop desiring for more is the day the death process begins. So transformation, you need to think it to be a transformational leader yourself. What is the next form? And like I said, the way you know transformation has happened, your problems change and your prayer points change. You cannot be praying for something 10 years after it should have come. You understand what I'm saying? Okay, let me stop there. I'm not going to go. So listen, if you're not thinking of the next form, you'll be stuck where you are. And leaders who are stuck in the past cannot deliver the future. There's no way a leader who is stuck in the past can deliver the future. I've had the privilege, I get called from time to time for different people who want to go into politics, who are in politics. And one of my frustrations, they want me to do strategy for them and all that and think for them. One of my frustrations is I say, you know what, we're going to go this way, we're going to go this way, and I keep hearing, oh, last time, that's not how we did it. And I'm thinking, duh, that's why you did not win. Because if we are stuck in how we did it, we will never create something different. So it's important for you all to begin to think transformation. One of the challenges of leadership, I'll tell you, is this. Many times as an entrepreneur, when you're starting, the people that are around you, the people that first work for you are those that are available. Yes or no? Your cousin, your friend, they are available. But as the business begins to grow, availability must give way to ability. But at that point, a lot of people are not able to make the transition because this is my cousin. If I let him go, it will cause family problem. But you need to be able to make that transition. Many leaders have been stuck in the past simply because of the people they have around them. All right? Now, let me run through the final thing I want to say. Again, we need, like I said about the Kenyan experience, we need to communicate that transformation. You need to be able to communicate your transformation. And if we don't communicate it properly, then others will communicate it for us. Let me give you an example. And this is where training comes in. You can sit down, you are managers. Let's take the hotel industry. So managers sit down and decide, this is how we are going to brand this hotel. This is the culture of this hotel. And we talk about the culture of tourism for this country, which is what I was doing the last few days. Now, you have said that as a manager. You now have a waiter who is serving you with smelling armpits. How does that represent what you have talked about? Is somebody hearing me today? The ability to communicate it down the line is very, very, very important. I was telling the hotel people yesterday, I said, you know, we talk here about great culture and all that. I said, but if we don't bring in the immigration people at the point of entry will mess up every plan we have made. So identify all the stakeholders in the transformation and make sure everyone is properly informed and properly equipped. That is why if we don't do that, I've had in the last 1 month different groups of people come from the US, and when they came they were scared because they had been told Africa, one of the groups was told power goes in Africa every night at 8 p.m. So come with your flashlights. So, and you know, it's true for the country, it's true for you. If you are not actively communicating your own brand, then others will define it for you. And that's part of the problem we have had. Great things have come out of Africa. We don't communicate it. Instead, we fight ourselves and talk about what somebody is not doing. At this point, I would like to tell you that on the 8th of July, for those who are interested, we're going to hold a public speakers masterclass for the whole day. It's a Saturday. At my table there, my team will give you a rundown on that. And the last thing, be true to your progressive values. I said progressive values, not just true to your values, because your values may be very, very retrogressive. When I went to Nigeria, from Kenya, from America, I lost a lot of money. And people were asking me, why didn't I just play ball and bribe a little? You bribe a little, you still have a lot of money. I said, I have said yes to so many things. I've said yes to being a great leader. I've said yes to being a voice of inspiration. I've said yes to serving the continent. I've said yes to so many things, so my no is easy because my yes is strong enough. So what are you saying yes to? That's going to determine a lot of things about if we get out of this curse. I have said yes, that my immediate environment must be transformed. I have said yes, that when I fail, I will get up. I have said yes, that the fear of failure will not stop me from trying. I have said yes to so many things. And because my yes is strong enough, my no is easy enough. Africa is not cursed. It is blessed. The conformity of our minds to the past and to outdated information is what has trapped this continent. We want to be like other people. If you read the book From Third World to First, Lee Kuan Yew, the founding father of Singapore, said there is no nation like Singapore, so we have nobody to copy. We would dare to be original. With new information like the information that we are having today, that we are not cursed. I believe our minds can be liberated to dream again. How many of you believe we are not cursed? Is there anybody here who believes Africa is cursed? No. We are not cursed. Because if we were cursed, why would planes come here every night full of people? Coming, and they are not coming to suffer. They are coming to enjoy holidays. Yes or no? I have friends in America who now want to settle here. Why? Because they will get a better quality of life here. More value for the dollar. Yes or no? Here. So we are not cursed. Absolutely not. And so we should never think that. Come on, tell the person next to you, I am so blessed. Too blessed to be stressed. Too blessed to be cursed. And that's why people keep coming. And they will keep coming. One of the things we are doing now, this in my resurrection now, is that because I want to showcase Africa, I'm saying people who want to start businesses in Kenya, we will set up everything for them. And we are getting them. They are coming. Why? Would they be moving to a land that is cursed? We are blessed. And listen, I'm going to end with a quote from the Bible. In Romans chapter 12 verse 2, it says, be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Conformity is the biggest stumbling block to transformation. And even the Bible says it. When you conform, when you should be transforming, you will end up deformed. And that is what has happened to Africa. But you can come out of it by refusing to conform. Say one more time, I am blessed. So if you can't change the world, I wanted to change the world. And I realized, you know what? I cannot change the world, but I can change my world. And the way I would change my world is to believe I am blessed. And I am going to do things. I told you in my resurrection, I am going all out. One of the things I'm starting is a 60-second program on TV called the 1 Minute Transformation. Why am I doing this? Have you noticed that it is only Africa when you have election? Listen, when you have election, get the police ready, get the Red Cross ready, get the mortuary ready, because you're having elections. Because you're having elections. That is why people think we are cursed. So I said, I am going to go out on my own. I'm going to put programs on television every day in between the news, talking about the fact that this is a blessed country. Let's preserve what we have. Let's preserve the greatness of this country. Nobody has to die because of an election. Nobody has to die. And let me tell you what your problem. Now, for the first time, I want to now talk as a Nigerian. Because always I talk as a Kenyan. Can I talk as a Nigerian? You see, let me tell you. When you are inside an aeroplane going at 900 kilometers per hour, you that is inside the aeroplane, you don't know it is moving. It is the people outside that can see and say, yeah, that thing is going fast though. Yes or no? So all of you inside this plane called Kenya, you don't know how fast it is moving. You are complaining. Just opening your mouth like mumu. Listen, instead of celebrating that, Lord, thank you, we have a blessed country. Is somebody hearing me? Now, why do you think people from outside are always coming here? Because you cannot see what is here. You are too blinded by your differences. So you are fighting each other every day. Yet we are looking at it and saying, whoa, what a country. What a country. Come on, tell your neighbor, say, what a country. So you need to leave this place with a different kind of thinking. Are you hearing me? Celebrate what you have. Do you know, when you look at the greatest empires on earth, the Egyptian, the Babylonian, the British Empire, the Roman Empire, you look at all those empires, the American Empire, do you know what they all had in common? They were places where people could converge from all over the world, settle, become citizens, become residents, and do business and thrive. Isn't it? When you hear all roads lead to Rome, that is what it was about. No, listen, I've walked across the length and breadth of Africa. No country in Africa has those credentials like Kenya today. None. No African country has the credentials of becoming a superpower like Kenya. South Africa would have had it, xenophobia will not allow. Nigeria would have had it, corruption will not allow. I mean, we are still looking for the one person. We are still looking for $20 billion from one person. Egypt would have had it. So, look, so the only country that has it is where? In fact, let me tell you, America is losing it because the very thing that made America great is what Trump is wanting to dismantle. Immigration was what made it great. That's what he's dismantling. So Kenya has it, friends. I want to challenge you. Kenya has it. I am such a passionate, fervent ambassador of this country in every country I go. I am fervent about it because this country gave me my life back when I failed. So my story of Kenya, my Kenyan experience is the land where dreams are fulfilled. That is it. So when I tell people, come to the land where dreams are fulfilled, I'm trying to get the immigration now. When people come in to welcome people and say, oh, welcome to the land where dreams are fulfilled. And what dream has brought you here today? Instead of interrogating you like you're a thief. Welcome to the land where dreams are fulfilled. Tell that to your neighbor. Doesn't that sound so cool? That is how we take this country to the next level. When all of us are saying it, all of us are declaring the blessing over the country, all of us are saying dreams are fulfilled here, then we will see it. Let's stop all the bickering and fighting and all that, because the people you are fighting for are friends. All right, of course, as usual, I know I will never be able to finish. So now, this is my newest book, just came out last week. And it's 1,200, but if you take it here, we'll give it to you at 1,000. It's a collection of some of these, my radical thoughts. All right, and a lot on transformation is here. The ushers can go around. If you want, please go around. If you want a copy, you can have that. This is called Creative Thinking. It's an older book, but I think we need it because some of us think accidentally. So ushers will go around and all that. So my parting shot is this. Now, I said I'm starting a one-minute show on television every day. If you want to partner with me on that, please come and have a chat with me immediately after. Give me your card, and let's talk about how we can do that and change the thinking of people in this country. My parting shot. Some people draw the map. Some people read the map. Others draw the map. Some people want to be fashionable. Others determine what fashion will be. Isn't it? So, let's think transformation for this continent. Let's make the news. Don't just watch the news. Make that news. Let's leave this place as transformers, doing things totally different, taking this country to the next level. Please tell the person next to you, the world is about to hear of me in a very special way. I want you to do something. If you can just get up, shake 2-3 people and tell them that the world is about to hear of me in a very special way. Come on, say it like you mean it. The world is about to hear of me in a very special way. I am blessed. Kenya is blessed. This is God's own country, and I'm privileged to be here. Thank you, Ted.
Thank you. All right, let's have a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for Dr. Wale. A better round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. How many people are inspired? How many people feel they can go back to the office now and work until the morning? All in favor of going back to the office, say aye. All of not in favor of going back to the office, say aye. The ayes have it. Thank you very much, Dr. Wale. We appreciate.
What shall we